Golden Black Radio is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. At Academy Sports and Outdoors, we carry all the gear you need from the top brands, all at prices you'll love. And now shopping at the Academy is more convenient than ever. We offer free assembly on in-store purchases of most bikes and grills, plus free and easy curbside pickup on academy.com orders. Want to save even more every day? Open and use an Academy Sports and Outdoors credit card to get 5% off future purchases when you're approved. Save time and money at Academy Sports and Outdoors and have fun out there.
Welcome to goldenblack.com Saturday Simulcast. It's a late one, 11:20 local time. Purdue with a 34-17 win over Southern Illinois. It wasn't easy tonight. Nate Barrett joins my co-host. Nate, they got the job done, but it was not an easy one tonight for Purdue.
Now, Alan, as you and Tom did your preseason shows, I think you always came to the conclusion, both of you, that the Boilermakers needed to be 2-0 ahead of this USC game, and they take care of business, get that done, have 2 games of confidence under their belt and adjustments to make ahead of what should be a really exciting contest and a big opportunity for Barry Odom's program at 3:30 next Saturday.
Yeah, and how this show works, by the way, is that we'll have Brian Neubert's going to join us here in a minute. Dub Jellison, Tom Dienhart will join after post-game press conference, and we will scoot along. We take your questions as well. I've had a couple of people already text me. the great Kevin Sullivan.
Nice.
Media analyst extraordinaire has got some good questions that I couldn't answer. We got to wait for Tom Dienhart so I can get an answer because I don't know the answer to that. And we'll do that. Want to thank also our sponsors, the Union Club Hotel at Purdue, an autograph collection retreat, blends student-run hospitality with resort luxury. Enjoy the spa, Boiler House, prime dining, and Burke Boilermaker Golf. Perfect for the wellness and Purdue fans as well as leisure seekers. Our property offers serene escapes. And on a day like today, it is that as well around that beautiful facility. Book your getaway today. And also want to thank our good friends, Nate's Day Job at Twin City and the Chariot Automotive Group, serving Greater Lafayette with the best new and used Jeep selection at TwinCitySuperstore.com. We appreciate your group. And like you said, Nate, they won't cancel practice, but I thought Purdue was pretty resilient in a lot of ways and got the job done. And that's a good sign. They're going to have their hands full next week. We'll get into that here in a minute. I'm going to bring Brian Neubert on. I think he's anxiously waiting. Are you anxiously waiting for us, Brian?
Oh, I'm anxiously waiting.
We got to you got a lot of things to do here before the end of the night, and we appreciate your time. But did you get your story posted already?
It's posted.
Oh, God love you. So you're way ahead of the game. All right. So what were your takeaways from tonight? Obviously, Purdue good enough to get the job done. I thought I was impressed with Southern Illinois, to be very honest, especially early. Purdue got smacked in the mouth and responded. What'd you think?
Yeah, I would concur. I think, there's no shame in winning in workmanlike fashion. And I think that, the defense giving up those 2 early touchdowns put them in a position where they had to respond. They had to adjust. I'll have to go back and watch tomorrow, but I think Purdue mixed up its coverages a little bit more kind of after that. And I think that they had some breakdowns probably on defense to start the game, but them being in a situation where they had to, respond favorably is something that they can probably build on moving forward. I don't think it's the style points that matter
right
at this point. I think it's the developmental points. And I think being tested in game 2 after not being necessarily tested in game 1, I think is probably a positive thing, because I think you grow as teams, not necessarily in games or practices, but in specific situations. And I think the defense having to respond from those 2 early touchdown drives that Southern Illinois managed to register, and then the turnover to start the second half, when the offense had a real opportunity to kind of put a hammerlock on this game through a bad interception. I thought Purdue got a little greedy there, a little impatient when they could have just kept grinding the ball and probably would have gotten points out of it. But it was a bad decision by the quarterback, too, to throw that ball into double coverage. I think there was probably some disconnect between the route being run as well. Nevertheless, throwing the ball into double coverage there when you're killing them on the ground was probably not optimal, but that once again put the defense in a situation where that they had to atone for the offense. They had to pick the offense up, and after catching another break where SIU airmails the wheel route that probably would have gone the distance.
Yeah, would have.
I think if I recall correctly, Purdue got 2 short yardage stops after that, and sort of came up big. So I know I just completely qualified the compliment I gave the defense by pointing out that Southern Illinois easily could have scored a touchdown with a better throw on the first play of that series, but I thought the defense, by and large, did what they had to do after those 14 points right off the bat. The 2 personal fouls on the scoring drive in the second half were weird. That was a little bit out of character for what we've seen from them through the majority of 8 quarters of football here. But, those 3 points didn't really matter all that much. Nevertheless, you didn't want to let SIU walk down the field that way. But by and large, I thought the defense really stepped up. The offense wore SIU down. This was once Purdue got ahead, I thought they played ideal playing with a lead football. They really ground Southern Illinois down. They really leaned on Devin Mockabee. They picked up short yardage situations. They didn't make mistakes other than the one. They didn't get called for any penalties on offense that I recall. They just did what they needed to do to salt that game away after they took that lead, after the defense, got all of its early problems out of its system.
Brian, you've always been a student of how specific guys can be so key to a program. It's been well covered about Devin Mockabee staying in this program, but just talk some more about him and the way he plays and how key that his style of play is for Purdue, because it seemed like he just really was grinding again tonight to keep a couple of plays alive and get those extra yards.
Yeah, I think he's kind of your ideal grind them down, play with a lead sort of guy. Purdue hasn't been in that situation very often during his career where you want to shorten the game, you really want to lean on a workhorse, and you want somebody whose will is going to really impact the game. And that's kind of the word I think of when I think of Devin Mockabee's career, is just will. Just this kind of relentlessness. I mean, he sets a physical tone for them. I think he's your consummate overachiever. I think his heart is bigger than the aggregate of his physical talent. But he just wants to be good so bad. He wants to be productive so bad. He plays so hard. It clearly means a lot to him. And I think there are very few players where that shows up in football, where you can actually sense those things about them and their personality. And I think he really put an exclamation point on this game by the way he finished it off, by the way he just really set the tone for Purdue taking this game over at the line of scrimmage. And I think his fingerprints are all over this game. He's clearly their goal line guy. He's what we'd call in fantasy football a touchdown vulture. He's going to get all that goal line stuff. Not that he wouldn't have before, but I think now it's his deal. And I think you're going to see a pretty nice statistical season for him this year. And it's just a matter of whether or not this year, as opposed to a couple other years he's been part of the program, that translates to winning. It's easier said than done, but he certainly deserves it.
Yeah, no doubt. And moved up to had a career high 31 rush attempts, I think it was at the end, and ninth 100-yard rushing game for Devin Mockabee as well. And he moved up the list. I think he passed Markel Jones. He may be up to 6th now all time. He's got a legitimate chance to catch Mike Allstott. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he will do that. Hard to believe that he's been starting since back in 2022. We had a question, and this is part we try to dig them up as we see them. Did it seem like their coach, and that of course is Coach Nick Hill of Southern Illinois? It was strange that they kicked the field goal, I thought, and then called timeouts, and Purdue kind of, I thought maybe Barry Odom would, probably did. And I know he has respect for him, and he talked about that this week. I thought they might have just tried to toss it in the end zone, but he didn't do that at the end. But it was kind of strange to watch that kicking down 20 and calling late timeouts was a little bit head scratching, and it prolonged our evening, which was what I didn't like that. But
that's the real crime.
Yeah.
Well, I think in situations like this, I think you're coaching for the rest of your season too.
I agree. I think it's,
and I think that coming away with points there I think you can take a little bit of positive out of that, even though Purdue's personal fouls accounted for probably half the yardage of the game there. I just think the morale boost you might have gotten from scoring versus giving up what probably would have been a fourth down sack, the way Purdue was defending at that point in time, probably was a win in his mind in defeat. I think that in the second half, and again, just after those first two scoring drives, I thought Purdue did a good job moving that quarterback out of his comfort zones a bit. He was throwing at shoelaces all day. I don't know if that's how he always is, or I don't know if he was feeling the pressure on Purdue, but that kid gave Purdue a lot of problems.
Yeah, he was good early.
He's a good player.
He's
and
a really good player. He's going to make money next year. He's still got a year of eligibility left. So
yeah, well, we'll see where he is next year then, I guess.
Yeah.
But he's a good player. He could be playing in a lot of places other than Southern Illinois. They're fortunate to have him. He gave him a chance in this game for, at least the first quarter.
I talk about Ryan Brown's performance. I didn't think he was great. And this comment from Chad Brown. I don't know if it's the Chad. It's not the Chad Brown. He is the Chad Brown, but not Chad Q Brown, a friend of the show, so to speak. But I didn't think he was as sharp. Obviously, the interception was a bad choice. What did you see out of him tonight, Brian?
I think he was fine. I think from what you needed for him to win this game, I think he was fine. The interception was a mistake. I think he's leaving yards on the field in read option. I think he needs some reps there in his decision making. I think he needs to play his way into a real comfort zone in that. There'll be plenty of film to watch, as there was last weekend too, on some of the decisions to make in those sorts of settings. But he should get better with starting experience. I mean, we're sitting here. He wasn't even on campus in the spring. Remember, this is he is running an offense now that is being the analogy I would use is the one that kind of goes around a little bit, is that they're building the airplane while they're flying it. And, this offense, this was an open quarterback competition, at least publicly. I don't know how it was behind the scenes. I don't know what they were planning for behind closed doors. But he was not here in the spring. This offense is being built for Ryan Brown's specific skill set, and this was his second game as a starter in this offense. So it's probably gonna take a couple of weeks to get into some real rhythm here in terms of the decisions he needs to make when he's doing these RPOs and these read option games. The quarterback is kind of like the point guard in this situation, where he's the most important decision maker in the game. And I think that's always the case with quarterbacks. But with all this option stuff now, it's about, you have to make these decisions based on very quick reads, based on what the defense is doing right in front of you. And it's not easy. And, it's something Purdue's had quarterbacks in the not so distant past really struggle with. And they probably weren't designed to do it. So they probably should have been calling it. But Ryan Brown is designed physically to do it. It's just getting experience doing that kind of thing, and just kind of understanding the lay of the land, the reads he needs to make, and so forth. I thought the last 2 weeks there have been some opportunities there that have gone by the wayside that they'll have to get better at moving forward, and probably will, because experience generally leads to improvement.
Here's one Alan might be able to pop up from Zane asking, any need to be worried that Purdue didn't have any forced turnovers these past two games, Brian, not including turnovers on downs. And with that, as I throw it back to you, a couple of late sacks there for C.J. Nunnally, 2 right in a row. But Purdue was able to at least force it over on downs a few times tonight.
Yeah, I think that the offense needs to make mistakes for you to have turnovers. And I think you credit the offense for not making mistakes as much as you indict the defense for not forcing those mistakes. I think the last two opponents have not really exposed themselves very much to turnovers. I think part of that is maybe being a little bit conservative in what they're doing, because they understand that there's a physical gulf that they can't overcome, playing straight up. So they're not really exposing themselves to a ton of risk. But the way you've seen Purdue get after the quarterback here at times in these first 2 games, I think you're going to see before long the quarterback's is going to make a mistake or two. He's going to fumble on contact or something like that. There was a play, I think it was on a 3rd down, where Smiley Bradford was dropped into zone coverage, and the quarterback threw the ball right to him. It was high. He got one hand on it, broke it up, but still threw the ball right to the safety. So, at some point, some of those things are going to go Purdue's way. But I think they're getting to the football. I think they're getting to the quarterback. I think they're hitting hard, hitting relatively hard. And, you keep doing that stuff, and eventually the ball's going to bounce your way. Purdue had a lot of lucky breaks in this game, too. I think that was part of this. They didn't win because of luck, but they had a lot of breaks go their way. It just so happens one of those breaks didn't involve a fumble or a tipped interception or an interception period. But I think if Purdue keeps playing as hard as it seems to be on defense, it keeps bringing pressure, which seems to be their style from a defensive play calling situation. It'll probably come, but you also need the offense to screw up too, and they just haven't.
All right, make sure you check out Brian's Upon Further Review. He does an excellent job analyzing, taking little game film and showing what he saw from today, and that'll be on the site tomorrow at goldenblack.com. Brian, thanks so much. We appreciate your late night as always and all that you do, and we're going to bring Dub in here in a second, and have a good rest of your evening by all means.
See you, Brian.
Right, guys. Yep. Thank you
so much, man. Appreciate it. All right, let's bring in Dub Jellison live from the post game. And Nate, you got a question for the guy?
Yeah, my opener for you, Dub, would be: did Barry Odom say anything in there that surprised you that you didn't expect from him? Because you've been covering him very closely so far.
I didn't know if he would recognize the Cleo O'Donnell history making, but he did that. Other than that, no. I think the thing that really stood out to me was just kind of how proud he was of his team for getting a gritty win. We've seen Purdue when they're flying high and it's all sunshine and rainbows. We've seen them on the practice field when you're not getting real adversity. So this was the first time seeing them getting smacked in the mouth those first 2 drives, and I think he was very proud of the way that they responded. Specifically on defense, the offense kind of carried the water there in the first quarter, and then the defense finally caught up and settled into the game.
I have to ask Kevin, and I don't know how you may know the answer to this. You may not. Kevin Sullivan had asked this via text to me, but what has happened to the playing time? 2 guys you guys talked about a little bit in camp, Sterling Stu Smith and Giordano Vaccaro. 2 guys that were you read a lot about during camp, haven't played a lot yet. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts there? Anything that comes up to answer there?
Yeah. So as far as Giordano Vaccaro goes, Barry Odom talked about Braden Joyner last week. He's a guy that I think they were really high on out of the portal. He was an all SEC freshman team guy at Auburn last year. Came in and took some time to get adjusted. So Vaccaro was kind of in that first team offensive line, and then Joyner really took off the latter 2-ish weeks of camp and really solidified himself as the starting center. And then I think we've talked about Ethan Trent a lot over the last month or 2, even going back several months. When he got that scholarship back in the spring, but he's another guy that's really emerged for them. And then Jalen St. John is a guy that Vance Weiss trusts. So those are his 3 spots. I think Vaccaro can play any of those 3 spots, and I think if any of those guys were to go down or weren't playing to their expectations, then I think he'd be the first guy up. But that's why he hasn't necessarily gotten any playing time lately. And then Stu Smith, I just think that there's so many veterans in that secondary. Another guy we haven't seen is Hershey McLaurin. He's a guy that I was high on coming out of the portal. I thought he could potentially start. We haven't seen him at all either. So I think that's just a byproduct of how talented that secondary is and how experienced they are and how competitive it is.
A guy we did see tonight, Dub, was George Burhan, 3 catches, 48 yards. He leads Purdue in receiving. That's a big encouragement to the Boilermaker faithful, because you guys talked in preseason that it might be touch and go at the beginning of the year for him, but in game 2, he comes out and makes a big impact.
Yeah, after we were at spring practice the day that he went down, and it's like, well, there goes another year. We're not seeing George Burhan till 2026. I think it was a miraculous recovery from him, and took a lot of perseverance and hard work. And I think Barry Odom's given a lot of credit to the strength and conditioning staff, the medical team here at Purdue, and just getting Burhan back in a position to even be on the field.
Yeah,
we weren't quite sure what we were going to see from him last week. He got in quite a bit. Had the one drop that got wiped out by penalty, but I think this is a huge step for Purdue. I think they only had one tight end target last week, and that's going to change as George Burhan continues to get his legs underneath him, and is able to get back on the field. Because you see the type of athlete he is at tight end. He's a guy that you have to utilize and have to take advantage of.
Yeah, no question on that front. Anything else, from the run game? Obviously, we talked to Brian about Devin Mockabee, but Workman had 32 career high 31 carries or whatever it was tonight. Purdue chose to run the football, and maybe that's what SIU brought to the table too, a little bit more tonight. We thought we would see more of that in week 1. What were your thoughts there?
I think the biggest thing is just the offensive line finding its groove, which it needed to. I think that's something we talked about all this week. And that really opened things up for Devin Mockabee and Ryan Brown to an extent, and Antonio Harris a little bit too. Getting that offensive line gelled together and clicking on all cylinders, I think that's big for them heading into USC and Notre Dame and Illinois. So I think that's a very encouraging mark just for them. I think that was one of the biggest things that they need to improve on from week 1 to week 2. And Devin Mockabee, he's just a pretty guy. I mean, you can't say enough good things about him when it comes to just how well he represents the program and how gritty he is. And I think his performance kind of resembles the way that they won this game, just gritty.
Yeah. Anything in the press conference, Dub, from a penalty standpoint? More penalties tonight for SIU. In fact, a couple of theirs really helped Purdue at a few key moments, but Purdue then had 2 of those 15-yarders back-to-back. That was the only bad sequence. The Boilermakers penalized twice for 30 yards tonight.
Yeah, I don't think Barry talked about that unless I missed it, but
he did. He did on the radio show, that post-game radio. He did talk about it. I think Tim asked him about it. He wasn't. He said, "Man, he was not happy about those 2 penalties down. Not surprisingly, but that was the only penalties of the game, right? But But go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, I didn't hear anything from him in the press conference, but I think that they're a superbly disciplined team. I think that they've proven that despite those 2 penalties, I think, they can, some of those are kind of objective or subjective. So you can go either way on some of them. But you really only if you have 2 plays in the entire game, I think you're sitting in a really good spot in terms of discipline and staying disciplined in your assignments and things of that nature. So, they capitalize on Southern Illinois' miscues, and there's I think that's really what helped them get back in the game. I think that's what really gave them the confidence, because the first 2 touchdowns, the first one was the pass interference when Brown had Mockabee on the wheel route. 2 plays later they score, and then they had the pass interference. No, the roughing the passer, excuse me. Yes. And then a few plays later, he hits Nitro Tuggle in the end zone and got it back 14-14. So that was big for them. And, people can say that's luck. I think good teams take advantage of those good breaks, and that's what Purdue did. So hats off to them.
Yeah. USC next week, and I don't know, Nate. What was the final? Are they still scoring points out there?
They're scoring a lot of points, and just confirming what we all know, that it's going to be a whole different ball game. But maybe Dub, circle back on 59-20, the final, as they beat Georgia Southern and their
a good program, by the way.
And their old coach. But you and Tom covered it with Alan and all the preseason shows. We were talking with Brian earlier about you had to get through these first two, take care of business, and have this kind of confidence heading into that game. And then your Purdue crowd's going to be behind you for a 3:30 kick. Should be a great atmosphere, but obviously a big-time level up next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Purdue passed these first two tests, and I know that fans might not be over the moon about how the team looked today. But a win's a win, and you take those lessons in a win rather than a loss, right? So USC is going to be the first big test for them. Just supercharged offense. Jade Maeva actually was quarterback for Barry Odom at UNLV in 2023. So they have some familiarity there. Obviously, Josh Henson came from USC. Michael Jackson time at USC. So. A lot of back and forth between the two programs, and a lot of familiar faces. Excuse me, but it'll be a big time test. And the thing that I want to see is how this secondary is going to hold up, because you saw what Southern Illinois did to them the first two drives. Yeah. And USC's aerial attack is a completely different level. So that's the biggest thing that I would be concerned with.
A comment about the offensive line still being suspect. Yeah, again, hard to completely bad, but though you have to give Southern Illinois some credit. I thought that they were, if they're the 15th ranked FCS team, it's pretty good FCS in Missouri Valley. They picked 6th in that league. Of course, Brock's back team is maybe a little higher up the food chain, but they did some good things. How did you see the offensive line tonight in terms of what you saw? I mean, he wasn't under a lot of pressure, certainly, and able to do some things from in the pass game. And Purdue ran the ball fine. I mean, he didn't have a ton of only averaged about a little over 4 yards a carry, which is not bad. But the point is, what did you see?
Yeah, I thought that was my biggest key for tonight was whether they could win the line of scrimmage offensively, and I think that they did. They kept Ryan Brown pretty upright for the most part. I think they opened up a lot of holes for Devin Mockabee. And even though they did that, I know Devin Mockabee didn't have necessarily the huge 20, 30-yard runs, but that's not something that he's done of late. I know he did that earlier in his career, but the big home run plays, those aren't going to come a whole lot. I think the Purdue offensive line opened up a lot of alleys for him today, and he was able to make some guys miss and pick up some good chunk yards. But I think it's a step in the right direction, and it's something that they needed, especially against an FCS opponent.
Here's one for you to comment on, Dub, from our comment board. Tom says, every game from here on out will be a dogfight for Purdue, which I think we all know that. But I would also add that these are the 2 wins you needed to get to, I think, mentally prepare your fan base for that dogfight. And for some of the games that you and Tom have pointed to in October, that'll be the must-get games for Purdue.
Yeah, absolutely. This is when things are going to get real for Barry Odom. We're going to see this team's true colors and what they're really made of. Beating Ball State and Southern Illinois is all good and well, but this leaps and bounds difference between those two programs and the 4 in a row you're really about to face. Yeah. Because I think Minnesota's an extremely good team, and they won 66-0 earlier today or yesterday. I can't remember. I'm getting my days mixed up, Alan.
Yeah.
It's been a long weekend.
On the road, he's already had. He was in Columbus last night covering recruiting and etc.
But yeah, so we're going to see what this team is made of, and we're going to take some lumps. It's going to be about how they can bounce back from it, because I don't like talking about last year because I feel like it's a completely different team. But last year we saw Purdue when they when they took that big loss at Notre Dame, I think that just shattered their whole season.
Yeah.
But if and when they do take a big loss this year, we're going to have to see how they respond.
Yeah, and it's going to be a storyline that we will be watching without question in terms of how that goes. Well, Dub, we will let you get back to the job at hand, and we've set an APB out for Tom Dienhart to join us here a little bit, and we'll do that. But Dub, thanks again so much. Thanks for the road trip last night. Like I said, you were and give us a quick little update on that too, and who you saw last night. Check it on our site, but you were in the Columbus area.
Yeah, was in Galloway, Ohio, to watch Imani Smith and Westland take on Central Crossing. Big win for Westland, 33-0. And Imani Smith, he can play 6 different positions at the high school level, and I think several different spots in the college level. But Purdue wants him as a defensive back, probably a nickel or a corner. Just super versatile, uber athletic. He really showed that on the offensive side. I didn't get to see a whole lot of him on the defensive side.
Yeah,
they just, in the high school game, if you have a really good cornerback, they're just not going to look his way. So they're going to the opposite side of the field. So that's kind of what the deal was with him last night. It exploded. Westland had 14 seconds left in the first half and had to go 75 yards, 3 straight balls to Imani Smith. The last one was a 51-yard Hail Mary for a touchdown. So it just goes to show the type of athlete he is, that he can play so many different spots for them and excel at all of them. But it was good to get out there. I had never been to Ohio for a high school football game, so it's pretty cool.
There you go. All right, very good. All right, thanks so much. Brother Dienhart is in the waiting room, and we appreciate that. And Dub, have a great rest of the evening. Get a good night's sleep. So there you go.
Yeah.
But it will be a while for you because you got a little bit of time down the road too. So safe travels.
Thanks,
Right,
Dub.
thank you, guys.
All righty, Nate. We're going to bring in Tom Dienhart here because he's also from the press conference. And Tom, you hearing us all right?
Gotcha. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, you look good. Obviously, a workmanlike performance, I guess you'd call it. What were your? I know you'll be writing your takeaways for the site if you haven't written them already. But what'd you see tonight? And obviously a job that Purdue got the job done. Maybe some style points missing, but does that really matter if you're Purdue when you just need wins?
Yeah, I think, like you said, workmanlike is a good way to phrase this game, guys. The first quarter, I think a lot of Boiler fans were biting their fingernails.
Yeah.
I could hear Nate Barrett behind me biting his fingernails.
I was.
When it was 14-14 and Purdue's defense didn't look like it had an answer for what SIU was doing. And, of course, Barry Odom was asked about that after the game. He says, hey, it's not like I waved a magic wand over these guys. They had their game plan. They just weren't executing it correctly. There was some communication issues. So that's all there really was to it. After that, guys, it was buttoned up. It was like a Ziploc bag, man. They only scored 3 points after that. And the yardage totals, I chronicled it in what I wrote tonight, like 50 yards SIU had in the first quarter, and the yards just descended with each subsequent quarter. So, again, they got things tightened up, and then the offense for Purdue kept doing its thing, right? Grinding, running behind Devin Mockabee, continues to add to his legacy.
Yeah, he was terrific on that front. While we take a second here, just to remind folks, you can hit the like and subscribe, and of course, you can leave a positive review of Tom Dienhart, of Nate Barrett, Brian Neubert, whatever you want to do. Say nice things and make sure you do that. We love to get reviews. Check out our, you can. For all of our Gold and Black Radio listeners and through Saturday Simulcast as well. Subscribe to goldandblack.com on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and enable alerts. New highlights and videos are uploaded regularly, like about 5 times a week, it seems. And that's all good. All right, Tom, Nate, you got a question for
Tom, I want to ask you about, we watched you all summer on these Saturday Simulcasts, and you told us many times about the importance of Purdue being 2-0 and getting ahead of steam for this USC game. How are you feeling covering it so closely? From my sense, it doesn't feel like they could feel much better about things than they, to the fan base. It looks pretty good right now.
Yeah, I asked Coach Odom about that and some of the players, hoping I was going to get a good juicy quote about USC coming here. Both teams are 2-0.
Sure.
It was going to be the biggest game in Ross-Ade Stadium history. I was going to try to pile on the hype here and the blow of the win already, Nate. I didn't get any of it. Those guys followed their PR script too closely for my liking. But let's go ahead and build the hype up anyway. But you're right, Nate. To be 2-0, I think most of us thought Purdue had to be here at 2-0 at this point, right? I mean, Ball State, SIU, mission accomplished, right? And mission accomplished in I think pretty nice fashion. If you're a Purdue coach, they checked a lot of boxes, as I always like to say. Now, there's certainly work to do. The staff would be the first to tell you that. I think, they did a better job with the line of scrimmage tonight, more physical. Barry Odom said Tuesday and Wednesday were probably the most physical practices of the week, over 200 yards rushing tonight. So that's always going to be an area to watch and continue to be an area of emphasis, that line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. But you're right, Nate, they have to feel good, right? And honestly, from here on out, it's kind of gravy for Purdue. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but the over-under win total was 3.5, and you're at 2 right now, right? Maybe you got a couple more out there, but a game like USC, nobody's expecting Purdue to win. Maybe we see the old Spoilermakers come out and shock the world. We were talking in the press box, guys. What's the line going to be next week?
Yeah. What do you think?
We thought about, Nate and Barrett and I were talking. Not Nate, but Nathan Barrett and I were talking, and Dub. About 20 points, maybe 24 points. I thought maybe 17, but I'll say 20 points, maybe the line here. And USC's got to travel across the country through 3 time zones too. So you never know what happens when those West Coast teams travel back across east toward this part of the country. So that's another factor that could work in Purdue's favor as well. Purdue's got nothing to lose. Yeah. And I think it's going to be closer to a sellout next weekend as well. 3:30 kickoff on CBS, I believe. And Alan Karpick, this. The last time the mighty Trojans, their shadows darkened West Lafayette was 1976 when Ricky Bell was their star running back. I remember I was about 11 years old. I couldn't go. It was too big of a game. My dad never let me go to like the Ohio game, the Miami Ohio game, and the Rummy games, Northwestern. I always got to see Northwestern play. I couldn't go to the USC game. So I was talking to somebody after the game. It's so cool when those logo programs come to West Lafayette to play. I know they're a Big Ten school now, but they don't feel like it. So it's going to be really cool to have a program like USC here next week.
Vince Evans, the quarterback. Of course, they went to the Bears, and Ricky Bell, 31-13. They beat Purdue pretty soundly. Though Purdue was in that game for half of the game, and of course that 76 team was Alex Agassi, and they got fired at the end of the year, but did beat Michigan and ruined Michigan, and Bo Schembechler's probably best chance for a national championship. Yeah, I think that line will be interesting. Not that maybe it will be close to 20, and we love the history stuff. 1997, Purdue was a 20-point underdog to Notre Dame, and Joe Tiller and company pulled an upset. It's going to be a huge challenge just because the USC's offense looks like it's just in steamroll.
Yeah.
Going to be, but what did you look at? From a defensive standpoint tonight, Tom? They didn't, again, they certainly righted the ship early. I'm sure USC is going to see some things in the early part of the game. Of course, again, SIU was really good at quarterback, and we knew that going in, and he played very well for at least early. What else did you see from a tackling perspective? Seemed okay. Not a lot of missed tackles, but what was your thoughts there?
Yeah, I thought the tackling was better. I think it will continue to be sound. These staff is going to drill these guys on tackling. I know they have, and the more they do it, like anything else in life, right, guys, the more you do something, the better you're going to get at it. So I thought it was better tonight. Pass rush was better, too. I thought that was an area of emphasis that needed to be enhanced, and we saw C.J. Nunnally come to life late in the game with getting a couple sacks and just some good pressure overall, guys. And Smiley Bradford, number 1 on the secondary, we had him in the post game. He had a real nice game. He didn't have real eye-popping stats, but he had that big hit on a 4th down play to snuff out one drive. And that secondary is pretty salty, I think. Now, having said all this, we're not going to throw.
We're going to find out next week.
Yeah. we won't throw a parade or hang a banner for beating Ball State and SIU. But again, you have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We all understand a whole nother level of athletes coming in here as far as the speed and that athletic ability goes. So yeah, it's going to be a big step up, but this is what it's all about. These are the teams you have to at least be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with if you really want to make progress as a program.
I wanted to get a comment out of you on George Burhan leading
Yeah.
Purdue in receiving tonight, 3 catches for 48 yards. And just to have him out there, that's a pretty big deal that you guys have covered extensively. But to see him playing out there and playing well tonight, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that was big. I tell you what, Nate, I really wasn't sure we were going to see him in the opener. He didn't start the game, but ended up playing maybe 15 snaps just to get him out there. He had 1 target, didn't catch a pass. Well, tonight, Nate, he led the team with, I mean, they were modest numbers, but he led the team with 3 catches for 48 yards. And we saw him make, I think, 25-yard yak on one of his receptions. A real nice play. We saw him. Yeah, you get him in full stride. It's a beautiful thing to see. And I think he's feeling better with that injury. I asked Coach Odom about George specifically after the presser tonight, and he had a lot of glowing things to say just about the determination to come back from that broken leg he suffered in the first scrimmage of spring ball last March it was. And he called it, I'm looking at the quote now, a terrible, terrible injury. So, Coach Odom doesn't usually want to have a lot of hyperbole. So that kind of gives you an idea of the extent of the injury George suffered. And he went into great detail, Coach Odom, about just the determination George had really shown throughout that whole rehab process. And this is a guy who's had to deal with a lot of physical issues anyway. So you can kind of get down on yourself, I'm sure, at some point. But here he is, guys. He looks like he's torqued up and ready to go, just as Purdue's going to hit the meat of its schedule.
Yeah, it's going to be all that they can handle, but it will be a fun environment. Kind of what, like I said, like we hope for. If you cover Purdue or around Purdue, you want a game at least where at kickoff there's going to be, like I said, be a near sellout, if not a sellout. Chick just sent something about thinking he must think the line at 17 points he'll end up being a sellout. Maybe.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to warm up a little bit next week and be a more toasty environment, maybe. But from a weather standpoint, but yeah, good win for Purdue. Right. Tom, we always appreciate your insights. We are going to. It is the late night where it's, as they say, it's midnight on the East Coast, which is where we are, not at least the Eastern time zone. So we appreciate everything that you do, and we'll look for your coverage. A lot of stuff will be burning up the goldenblack.com site tomorrow. So again, thanks for everything, and thanks for making time for us.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Of course, we'll get Coach Odom on Monday. We get the coordinators on Monday, and a few players as well. So I can't wait for next week. I'm already excited.
Yeah, we'll have Tom Wednesday night live, also 9:00. Golden Black Radio on Tuesday. I'm sure that Dub and Tom will be part of that. Dub and Tom will be part of Wednesday Night Live. We talk about it a lot and write about it a lot too, and the guys do a great job. So Tom, thanks again, man, and we appreciate it. And enjoy what's left. All right, we're going to need it. So, thanks. All right, Nate, we're going to wrap this up here, but closing thoughts from you. Certainly again, got the job done. That part's really good, and you want that, and that again, mission accomplished for the Boilermakers.
Yeah, mission accomplished that you think everybody seems to have gotten out of here healthy. Alan, George Burhan, as we commented on, is just a huge deal to have him in the mix. Maccabee, again, brings it for you tonight in the way you need him to. And then I think the comment that was made earlier about Ryan Brown just continuing to get more comfortable in throwing the football will be a big key for Purdue as the season goes along. So you needed to be 2-0 ahead of the Trojans coming in here, Alan. It sets up what should be a lot of fun at kickoff at 3:30 next Saturday.
All right, we're going to throw one other quick question out there because it's about next week. Josh Henson, of course, Purdue's offensive coordinator, has been working under Lincoln Riley at USC. You guys think it's an advantage for Purdue because he knows what Lincoln Riley likes to call? Won't hurt, But Lincoln Riley has a bag of tricks. Typically, I know that he has not had the success that some people thought at USC, but he may be trying to. I know he's trying to make up for lost time. I don't know. Any quick thought on that, Nate, in terms of the advantage there?
Well, as we touched on earlier in the show, there's a lot of little side stories between Purdue and USC right now. I think that'll all be interesting, and I'm sure your team at Gold and Black will cover it well this week. I think the thing that's of interest to me, Alan, just as a football fan like you over the years, is where USC is in the football marketplace right now and the pressure on Lincoln Riley and the program. He had a lot of success at Oklahoma. They have not been able to achieve yet what he wanted. And as Tom just touched on, when they fly a few time zones away and expect for them an easy victory here in Ross-Ade Stadium, if Purdue could do some things to get them back on their heels a little bit and surprise them, stay in this thing late into it, could be a really fun environment.
All right, we're going to look forward to that as well. We will have goldenblack.com Saturday simulcast after the game. Obviously, we tip it off a half hour after the game is over, and I will do a better job linking to our old message boards. I don't know what I was doing, thinking about that, but we had a lot of really good show. A lot of folks in here tonight. We appreciate you staying up late with us. Next week's show, I would guess, would be around that 8:15, 8:30 time frame, depending on how long that game is. I guess after they tear down the goalposts after Purdue wins and all that, we'll have a lot to do. We'll see. As you can always, if you're a Purdue fan, you can dream big, and maybe that'll be the thought for tonight.
Alan, one more thought on that note about environment and magic. I have on good authority a ton of Rose Bowl 2000 guys will be back, as we all know, for the reunion, but they're expecting, even at the Varsity P tailgate event, a really big turnout. So it should be special to have that team back in the stadium.
And the last and only time I believe Purdue's beaten USC, 1967 Rose Bowl, 14-13. Perry Williams gets both touchdowns in that game. Purdue, when it's his first Rose Bowl appearance, gets the job done against a former Purdue football player, John McKay, the head coach at Southern Cal at that time. So it'll be, like you said, it'll be fun to see those uniforms here and be part of this. And you hope, if you're a Purdue fan, it'll be a competitive game. And we'll see how it all shakes out. All right, I want to thank Union Club Hotel, autograph collection retreat, and all that they have. They've got students working there in the hospitality. Purdue, of course, has a great travel and tourism department at Purdue, and they're working hard at the Union. In fact, I've got to pick up one of my longtime friends here because he's at the Boiler Up Bar right now. And
outstanding,
and a good choice after the game. He was at the game, Tony Postar, and a lot of fun to. That's what college football is all about. You bring friends and longtime Purdue fans back for games. We're going to look forward to doing that. Of course, we want to also thank the good folks at Chariot Auto Group and Twin City and Nate's, like I said, Nate's day job. So we appreciate them as well. So have a great rest of your evening. The replay will be posted. Well, it's available now. Link is on our site. If you missed part of this, I will also post the podcast version of this when I get home, which will be about 20 minutes or so. We'll get that posted as well. And it's always good and fun to talk about a win. Like you said, Purdue 2-0 after the win today over Southern Illinois, and the Boilermakers will take on USC 3:30 kick next week. Game on CBS, and of course you can listen to the Purdue radio crew as well if you aren't able to get in front of a television, or you can do both. You can listen to Rob, Tim, and Mark Herman. They do a great job, and it's a privilege to be a part of their broadcast from time to time. And Nate will be doing. You're going to do what? Well, you said you're going to Washington, right?
Looks like I'm covering for Rob for the Washington game, because that's the time of year when the basketball and football schedule gets pretty tight.
All right. Have a great rest of your evening, Nate. Thanks again, and thanks to all of you for watching and listening. And a reminder too to like, leave us a positive review. You can also, a novel thought would be to subscribe also to goldenblack.com. We would like that as well. I'm privileged to work with some really good people that are very passionate about the job they do. A lot of recruiting coverage on goldenblack.com. There's some $1 special too that you can always at least get you started with us, but we would love to have you as a member of goldenblack.com. So have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you next week on Saturday Simulcast. We'll also see you on Tuesday for Golden Black Radio. Monday Night Memories, Chris Clopton this week. We had a good one last week with Jim Chaney, and had a lot of fun with that. And we will. Nate's crew is a sponsor of that. Nate and I do a little pre and post on the Monday Night Memory. So again, have a great evening, and thanks again for watching and listening.